And we should be live now. Khadija, are you ready? Okay.
Sure.
Everyone else ready?
Yes, we're good to go, Thomas. Thank you.
Of course, I forget that we're live, so it's going to show up. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you waiting with us. Just making sure that the feed is going well and that everything is ready for you today. So do apologize for that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Thomas Varela. We're excited to have you join us this evening for the Understanding Judicial Gerrymandering and its impact in the urban community. We're excited to have our featured speaker join us and really share what's really important regarding this important topic. It's one that hasn't gained as much coverage, but it's one that's critically important for urban communities. And we really appreciate the opportunity to share this important topic with you all and help you understand why this issue is important to urban communities. Before we begin, I want to quickly introduce and have our members introduce themselves. As you know, the Make Black Coalition is a new initiative. It's focused on increasing voting participation and census completion. Of course, with the census done, we are shifted primarily to voter participation in education. My name is Thomas Varela. I serve as the Director of Advocacy for the Urban League of Philadelphia, one of the Make Black Count Coalition members. Our focus is on empowering the urban community through economic empowerment and social justice. We do that through several initiatives: workforce, housing, entrepreneurship, criminal justice reform, and other initiatives, all centered on empowering the urban community, primarily and historically African-American communities. At this time, I want to turn it over to some of my coalition members to quickly introduce themselves and talk briefly about their organization. So at this time, Corinne Parker, would you unmute and introduce yourself to the audience?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Corinne Parker, and I am the president of the Philadelphia chapter of the Coalition of Labor Union Women. And our organization pretty much connects the feminist movement to the labor movement. And we are made up of all various labor unions. and we service our community. We do a lot of get out to vote and things of that nature. So I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for being here.
Great. Next, we'll want to invite Joel Wilson to introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joel Wilson. I serve as the president of the 100 Black Men of Philadelphia chapter. We are primarily a youth mentoring program, and we have a special focus on our young Black boys from 1st through 12th grade. Our 5 pillar areas of advocacy include economic empowerment, mentoring, leadership, health and wellness, and voter education and registration. Thank you.
Great. Next, we'll invite Monica Robinson.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Monica Robinson, and I serve as the chair of the Pennsylvania NAACP State Conference Criminal Justice Committee. The NAACP is the oldest civil rights organization, and our focus is on the 6 game changers, which is economic sustainability, education, health, public safety, and criminal justice, voting rights, and political representation, and expanding youth and young adult engagement. Sorry, I didn't realize if somebody else was trying to talk. I was trying to give them an opportunity to speak.
Great, not a problem. And we also want to thank our promotional partners that joined us this evening. We appreciate your support in helping to spread awareness of this initiative. This includes Black Voters Matter, She Can Win, and sorry, I'm just trying to, and we want to at this time introduce some of our other coalition members. We have Linda Miller from the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. If you're able to take a few minutes and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm wearing 2 hats tonight. I'm Linda Miller, representing Coalition of 100 Black Women PA chapter, and I'm also co-chair social action for Philadelphia Alumni chapter, Delta Sigma Theta. So, and I'm excited to be here. This is an important subject, and I'm glad that there's so many of us of color having this discussion, because we have not been having this discussion at the level that we should have. So thank you.
Great, and we appreciate you, as you mentioned, wearing double hats. Before I introduce Bruce, I also want to thank the National Pan-Atlantic Council, the Southeastern Pennsylvania region, for joining us as a promotional partner this evening. So we really appreciate the Divine Nine joining this important conversation. So with that, I want to introduce Bruce Hill, President of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Road Chapter, to quickly introduce himself.
Thanks, Thomas, and good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. Again, I am Robert Bruce Hill Jr., and I'm the president of Road Chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. We are the oldest Black Greek letter fraternity, founded for and by African-American men in 1906 at Cornell University. We as Road Chapter, the largest alumni chapter here in the Philadelphia area, are committed to making sure that we are bringing advocacy and awareness to voting and other issues that affect, our communities. So we are grateful to be part of this partnership here with the coalition, and just making sure that we are promoting our national program. Under Alpha is, a voteless people is a hopeless people. But beyond that, so much more goes into voting, such as this conversation around gerrymandering. I'm so glad to be a part. Looking forward to the discussion this evening. Thanks, Thomas.
Great, great. And we appreciate you, Bruce, joining us as president of your chapter. We also want to give a quick minute to have Ms. Penny Nixon, if you are available and able to speak briefly, to introduce yourself as president of the Philadelphia Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Good evening, I am, and thank you. Thanks for just Philadelphia Alumni Chapter. Linda Miller is one of the co-chairs for social action for the Philadelphia Alumni Chapter. And I will tell you, at every general body meeting, an executive board meeting, she brings the conversation about gerrymandering and how important it is for us to have the discussion around it and also take some action. So just wanted to join the conversation tonight, just to listen in and just learn more about the subject, to be honest, and just to be able to support the co-chairs of social action of the Philadelphia Alumni Chapter as well as they try to move this work forward. So thank you.
Hey, Tom, you're on mute.
We appreciate everyone joining us for this conversation. It's very important that we are at the forefront of this important topic. Once again, I invite you to follow the organizations that are in this feed. We encourage the organizations to add their links in the Facebook Live comment section so that the community can find you and know how to follow you. Because we really want to ensure that others are aware of all the organizations that are committed to ensuring that all 100% voter participation among African Americans in the Philadelphia region. The Make Black Coalition is a 5-county initiative centered on the Philadelphia region to ensure that all African Americans see the power and harness the power in their vote. So at this time, I do want to have Ms. Kadita Kenner prepared to come up to the screen. I'll do a quick bio. Ms. Kadita Kenner is a Westchester, Philadelphia native and Temple University grad. She was most recently a writer, producer, and director for college sports television program in Charlotte, North Carolina. Energized by the 2016 election, she decided to take a hiatus from TV production and return to campaign work as a field and digital organizer for the North Carolina Democratic Party coordinated campaign. Following the election, Kadita moved back to Pennsylvania and currently lives in Harrisburg while working as the director of campaigns for the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center, the We the People campaign, and the Why Courts Matter campaign are both led by the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center. We the People is a nonpartisan campaign that aims to make state government work for all of us. The agenda was created from the ground up by people who came together in meeting and town halls across Pennsylvania. Why Courts Matter is a nonpartisan coalition of organizations and advocates working to ensure our courts remain independent, co-equal branch of government that keep with the core constitutional value of liberty, equality, and justice for all. So without further ado, Ms. Kadita Kenner, thank you for taking time out your schedule to speak to us about this important topic, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to all of you who belong to the Make Black Count Coalition. Good to see your faces. Some familiar faces as well, as I've done some work with a few of your organizations in the last few years. And I'm just grateful to be here on this Black History Month to talk about a very important topic that impacts our communities. And so I hope that I'm able to provide you with some new information tonight and then give you a call to action so that we can continue to do what we do, which is defend this democracy with a small d, with all that we have. So I do have a presentation to share with you this evening, and I'm grateful to know that there's lots of folks watching here on Facebook Live to get all of this information. And so I'll share a lot of things there in the Zoom room with the folks that are joining us tonight. So you have this information, and then also on the Facebook Live feed as well. So you get this information as well. So I have a PowerPoint presentation. I'll bring it up and then I'll take it back down because I like to see the folks who are currently in the Zoom room. I like to see your facial expressions because you will definitely see mine throughout the evening as I talk about this important topic. And I want to make sure we're all understanding what's happening here. So I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint presentation and get this thing started. All right. So I'll pull back here for a second. As Thomas mentioned, in work that I've done across the state and federally as well with Why Courts Matter Pennsylvania, is I previously traveled pre-COVID times talking about the importance of the federal courts and trying to stop the problematic judicial nominees that the Trump administration was putting forward. But now we've kind of focused our attention on the Pennsylvania state courts because there is a lot of things going on, particularly at our appellate court level. And I want to make sure that all Pennsylvanians get this information, and particularly our communities. So I'll talk to you a little bit about this. There's a table that has been formed. It's called the Judicial Independence Project of Pennsylvania table, of which Thomas and others sit at this table to receive the information and be involved in the legislative strategy and the overall campaign strategy of how we're trying to push back against House Bill 38, otherwise known as judicial districting. And so we'll get into that. But I want to give a quick, civics 101 lesson. It's been some time since a lot of us have had civics. I know it was for me in 9th and 10th grade and a little bit in college. And so I just want to remind us about, what is the Pennsylvania judiciary and how it runs. And so just a reminder, we know about federalism, right? And because we have federalism, we have both federal government and each state has a government that has their own court systems. And here in Pennsylvania, our state court is the final arbiter of state laws and our state constitution. But the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's interpretation of federal law or the United States Constitution may be appealed to the United States Supreme Court. So there's levels to this, right? So this is the hierarchy of the different courts here in the state of Pennsylvania. We have our minor courts. Those can include your magisterial courts. These can include your traffic courts. We know a lot about that, especially if you're joining in from Philadelphia. And then also our courts of common pleas at the lower levels. And not to say that minor courts is minor, because they can disperse justice and they can, give sentences up to 5 years. So lots of things happen at the minor court and courts of common pleas level. Most cases are going to stop at that level and they're not going to reach the next levels of this hierarchy. The courts of common pleas are your trial courts. They're going to hear anything having to do with domestic issues, criminal cases, etc. After the courts of common pleas, if you're able to appeal your case for just cause, your case may go above and go to the intermediate appellate level, which would be the Superior Court here in Pennsylvania or the Commonwealth Court. And then the ultimate arbiter here in Pennsylvania is the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And we probably have a better shot of having our case heard in front of the Powerball Commission than we do reaching Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So I want you to get a good look at who currently sits on these appellate courts, because this is going to be a lot about what we're going to talk about next. So this is the Pennsylvania Superior Court. There's typically 15 judges who sit on this court. There's currently 1 vacancy. So we have 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans currently on this bench. And we vote for these folks in partisan elections. We vote for them by their political party, and they serve a 10-year term. At the end of their 10-year term, we have the option to retain them or not in a nonpartisan election, because you won't see the D or R after their name in a retention vote. You'll see their name and you'll see a yes or no, and you can choose to retain these judges or not. And so the Pennsylvania Superior Court has been around for quite some time, since 1895. It is one of those 2 appellate courts that I mentioned, the other being the Commonwealth. And if you could look at this picture, you'll see that we do a pretty good job of putting women on the bench. What we don't do a good job of is putting folks of color on our appellate court benches. We only have 1 in this picture, and that's Superior Court Judge Carolyn Nichols. She happens to be the only person of color in all 31 seats of the appellate courts. Trying to give you an idea of cases that are heard, because we want to make sure our folks understand the kind of cases that the appellate court level will receive and decide. This is a picture of young JR. He was just 3 months shy of his 14th birthday when a friend of his actually killed him after unloading the clip of his father's handgun and unwittingly shooting JR with a chambered bullet. It was in September of 2020 that the Pennsylvania Superior Court found that the Federal Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act to be unconstitutional, which allowed for JR's family to seek accountability and justice for his death. This is the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania. And again, as you can look at the picture here of the folks who sit on this bench, we do have a good deal of women, more women than men actually. And then again, lacking any racial diversity on this bench. This also is a partisan election. We elect them for 10-year terms. There are 9 judges who sit on the Commonwealth Court, and this one leans Republican. There are 7 Republicans and 2 Democrats. They only hear cases involving state government and government agency cases. This court is the other of the intermediate appellate courts. It's uniquely Pennsylvanian. You won't find this anyplace else. And it's been around since 1968. The kind of cases you'll hear, the kind of cases the Commonwealth Court will hear, are like this. So this is Philadelphia resident Lorraine Hall. She actually is a victim of gun violence, or she's a victim of crime. Both her brother and her son were lost to this. She herself has gone through the criminal justice system. And if we all remember back to 2019, we all had the opportunity to vote on a ballot referendum. It was for Marsy's Law, the crime victim law. And a lot of us said yes, because that crime victims bill did pass. But in January, just last month of this year, the Commonwealth Court ruled that Marsy's Law was unconstitutional and invalidated all of our referendum votes because the law that was put on the ballot was trying to change too many things at once. And so the Commonwealth Court ruled that Marsy's Law was unconstitutional. And right now it's probably going to go to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to be appealed again. And then finally, we have our Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It is the oldest appellate court in the entire nation, founded in 1722. It has 7 justices that sit on this bench, 5 Democrats, 2 women. Again, partisan elections, that they serve 10-year terms. The gentleman in the center is Chief Justice Saylor. He is going to retire very soon, which will make the woman to his right, Justice Deborah Todd, the Chief Justice for Pennsylvania, making history as the first woman, female, the first woman Chief Justice in Pennsylvania history. And again, you see a pretty good amount of women here. And again, no people of color. The kind of cases that you'll hear here in the Supreme Court involve one like this. This is Kiara Tucker out of Delaware County. She is someone like many out there who may be watching who never received their mail-in ballot at home in time to, fill that out and turn that in. And so she had to go to the polls on election day and vote provisionally in the 2020 general election. And so after she went to go vote, she received a letter in the mail that told her that her vote was being challenged. And we all know here in Pennsylvania, there was lots of litigation about how our election was carried out, how our free and fair election was carried out. And so the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that her ballot should count, that her voice should be heard. And they rejected the attempts to contest these provisional ballots. And so with that, I hope that we got a good understanding there of kind of what the courts look like, who's currently sitting on them, and how they come to be. We vote for all of those judges in statewide elections currently. We all have the opportunity to vote for all 31 of them. So if you've been in Pennsylvania for about 30 years plus, you had the opportunity to vote for all of those folks or not. But that would change with House Bill 38. And that's what I want to talk to you about right now, because they want to change the way in which we are electing our appellate court judges. So before I do that, I kind of want to break this down a little bit for you, because you're going to hear this term out there a lot, which is judicial independence. We want an independent judiciary. You may hear it that way as well. So what does that really mean? It means that we want for our courts and our judges to be impartial. We want to make sure that they are free from conflicts of interest and any undue influence on them. We want to make sure they're ethical, that they follow clearly defined rules of behavior, that they're fairly selected in a way that's the most impartial way possible, where the process is insulated from political pressures, and transparent, that they operate with full disclosure of a judge's financial obligations and ties, and maybe any kind of influence that could impact this judge. Also, that they are evaluated and monitored. The performance is regularly evaluated by neutral, nonpartisan, non-interested groups, and that they're resourced. I come to you today as Director of Campaigns for the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center, and I can tell you that whenever we have a gap in our budget and when the funding is short, what do? We cut safety net programs, funding to safety net programs. We cut funding to education. Well, we shouldn't do that. And we also shouldn't cut publicly funded courts here in Pennsylvania. They are fully funded and publicly funded. And so discretion is the last principle of holding an independent and accountable judiciary. We want to make sure that our judges and our courts make appropriate decisions, accounting for specific circumstances like sentencing, bail, and early release. So I have a quick, I'm going to take us all back to our Schoolhouse Rock days, if you remember those days. And I have a quick 2-minute video here to really break down for you and explain what judicial districting is. You may also have heard the term judicial gerrymandering in the past. So we want to explain to you what this is, because I can show you better than I can tell you. So let me pull this video up for you.
Hey, Pennsylvania. You know how we've been fighting gerrymandering? Where politicians draw legislative maps that give them an unfair advantage and take away democratic power from voters? Well, those same politicians want to do the same thing to our judicial elections. Judicial gerrymandering changes how we elect judges to our state's highest courts, including the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. we elect judges statewide today. A proposed constitutional amendment would give legislators the power to create districts to elect judges. And just as they gerrymander legislative maps to favor their preferred candidates, legislators would do that with judicial districts as well. So why is this so bad? It's pretty simple. Judicial districts are a solution in search of a problem. Look at our judges and justices, and you will see that they are from all over the state. But electing judges in districts could make it more difficult to put the best qualified judges on the bench in particular elections in the future. We want the best qualified candidates from the state to be judges in our courts, no matter where they are from. There is no Montgomery County or Elk County way to interpret statutes and the Pennsylvania Constitution. Most importantly, electing judges in legislator-drawn districts would undermine the independence of the courts and the separation of powers. Allowing legislators to influence who gets on our courts would enable them to influence the decisions they make, undermining the checks and balances so critical to our Constitution. Our appellate courts make major decisions regarding civil liberties and rights, educational funding, environmental protection, and gerrymandering itself. We must protect the independence of our courts.
All right. I hope you like that video. I hope it explains some things for you. I'm about to take down my PowerPoint presentation because I do want to engage here with the folks who are in the Zoom room. And I want to talk to you about these issues. And I want to break down a few things for you. I want to talk about the attacks on our democracy and our independent judiciary from a historic perspective, and also what's happened recently here in Pennsylvania. I want to talk to you about why House Bill 38 is problematic, what's at stake for us and our communities, and then dispel some of these myths that are out there and give you the facts. And talk about where this bill is currently now in Harrisburg, and give us a call to action, because the proof that one truly believes is in their action. So I want to show you a couple of pictures really quickly, just to kind of set the scene for you. And we are in Black History Month, so I think this is important to show. I don't know who's out there right now looking. Maybe you were around during this time. Maybe not. I don't think so in this Zoom room. But during this time in the 50s, we had United States Supreme Court Chief Justice Earl Warren. And this court, this Earl Warren court, overturned a lot of Jim Crow legislation, including Brown versus Board of Education, which ensured that we can do away with separate and equal. And the John Birch Society was behind this. I don't know if you know anything about the John Birch Society, but you can definitely Google those folks and learn more. But I think a lot of this is telling by looking at the graphic here, when you have a Confederate flag on one side and then the United States flag on the other here in the 50s. But they wanted to impeach Justice Earl Warren because of the decisions that were coming out of his court. All this overturning of Jim Crow laws was upsetting to some folks, very upsetting, to the point where they wanted to impeach this man. And so there were billboards across this country that looked just like this. These are them that talked about impeaching Earl Warren. And so we have a history here in this country of trying to impeach Supreme Court justices when they are making decisions that certain folks don't like. And I want to show you this because here in Pennsylvania, we did the kind of same thing here, maybe not the same issue, but we had some state representatives who wanted to impeach our Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices based upon decisions that they were making. If we go back to 2018, just this month in 2018, we had Representative Chris Dush, who is now State Senator Chris Dush, wanted to impeach our Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices because they were unhappy with the rulings that came out when they decided that those 2011 congressional maps were gerrymandered to favor a political party. And so our Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled those unconstitutional, and we drew the lines differently there here in 2018 to make sure that there was better representation. And so because that happened, again, we had some Republicans in Harrisburg determining that they wanted to impeach these justices. So I said all that. I'm going to take my PowerPoint down now because I want to talk to you about these issues. And I want to talk to you about where this bill is, what's happening with it, why it's problematic, and some of the things you may hear from the author of this bill, State Representative Russ Diamond out of Lebanon County, because we need to combat all of the myths that are out there so we can overcome this House Bill 38, because it's going to be problematic for us and others. So with that, I want to mention a few things. Number one, you saw this in the explainer video. There's no Philadelphia way. There's no Pittsburgh, Allegheny County way, no Montgomery County, Delaware County, Chester County way to interpret the Pennsylvania Constitution. Our Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices are not beholden to us as constituents. They are only beholden to the Pennsylvania Constitution and the law. Now, if we want to know who our judges are, you get that in your common pleas level. You may know who your common pleas judges. You may know who some of the common pleas candidates are. You may know these folks. You may attend service with them. They may belong to some organizations you belong to. That's great. Because these are the folks who are mostly going to hear your cases. Your case is not going to get heard by the appellate courts. You get the regional flavor out of your common pleas courts. You vote for them by county. I think Philadelphia, you have like 12 or something like that to vote for in this coming election. So you get that. So I want to make sure we dispel this myth that somehow if I come from Center County or Bradford County or Potter County or Forest County, that somehow the decisions I'm going to make as an appellate court judge is going to be different, because that's just not the case. And that's not how appellate court judges rule. So I wanted to dispel that myth. So there is no such thing as the necessity of geographic diversity. It's not a protected class like race and gender is. The other thing you may hear from the other side is that somehow this is going to help bring other kinds of diversity to the bench. And knowing Russ Diamond and knowing that he's already blocked me from his Facebook page and others, I know that he doesn't care too much about racial diversity. And he really doesn't care too much about the gender diversity probably either, because in his county, Lebanon County, they have 0 common pleas court judges that are women. And where do we get appellate court judges from? From the common pleas level. They're elevated and we vote for them. And so if you don't have any women at all, currently on your common pleas court, how are you going to elevate any to the appellate level? And so I want to tell you that there are 2 states in the country who vote for their judges the way that Russ Diamond proposes that we do. And that is Louisiana and Illinois. And Illinois has been doing this for many years now, Louisiana as well. And so they don't follow the way in which the law is written. House Bill 38 is written that these maps could be changed every 10 years or so often. That's not how they currently do that in Illinois or how they do that in Louisiana. And also you should know that both of those states have a population that is greater than 40% of people of color who live in those 2 states. Neither one of those 2 states have ever had more than 1 person of color sit on the appellate courts at any given time. So it will do nothing to bring racial diversity to the bench. And the other argument is kind of what I mentioned, is that it's going to, right now we do a great job here in Pennsylvania of electing women on our appellate courts. 61% of all of our appellate courts are women. So yes, it's very important to know that we do a great job with that, because studies have proven that when women sit on panels, they do a much better job of bringing the men on those panels in on issues that involve civil and human rights. And so it's very important to have that perspective on the bench. The other thing you should know is that this is also not going to do away with the costs that it costs to run for office. The cost, if you want to be a Supreme Court justice. The most expensive appellate court race in history is in Illinois, that state that elects the judges the way Russ Diamond wants us to. It costs $10.7 million in an anti-retention campaign there in Illinois just this past election. And $4.5 million of that money came from one man, a hedge fund owner. So you talk about having some influence over the appellate courts. I'm sure someone who donates $4.5 million is going to have some influence over that judge and the decisions that judge could make. So that's another argument that has to get thrown out of the window at this moment. So I bring you all that now to tell you where this House Bill 38 is. So congratulations to all of you out there who are watching right now, who've already taken action. Those of you who have written letters to the editor, those of you who have written letters to your legislators, those of you who have made phone calls into your legislative offices, those of you who've had conversations with family members who live out in Erie and Wilkes-Barre, right? So thank you for having those conversations. Because of that advocacy, House Bill 38 has not reached a calendar to vote on in this upcoming next few weeks or so, to put it on the May ballot. So we're believing right now, we're still knocking on wood and we're still advocating, but we believe right now you will not see it on the May ballot. They're just running out of time. They have a drop dead date of February 18th. To put it on the May ballot, that's 90 days ahead of time, because in order to change the Pennsylvania Constitution, we have to give the voters a 90 days notice whenever there's a potential change to the Pennsylvania Constitution. So that 90 days is February 18th, and we're almost past that deadline. So we're celebrating about that a little bit and about the advocacy of all of you out there who have taken action, but we can't stop because they can still put this on the November ballot as long as they pass this again in the second session here before the end of July. So it has already passed the House and the Senate one time, but anything that's going to change the Pennsylvania Constitution has to pass 2 consecutive sessions. So they have until the end of July to get that thing on the ballot here in November. And so that's why I'm here tonight and others to make sure that we're making everybody very aware of the situation. And we're happy about what's happening now, but we can't stop the advocacy. We have to continue to defend this democracy against these attacks. And it is nothing more than a power grab. And we are stuck here in the middle as collateral damage by folks who are upset at the courts, and especially the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, for the rulings that they've made. And they want to punish those courts and those judges. And through that, they're going to disenfranchise us and stop the way in which we elect judges. Currently, like I said, we can vote for all 31 appellate court judges. This would change that. Russ Diamond would draw these maps, and we would only be able to vote for 3 of these appellate court judges, 1 on the Commonwealth, 1 on the Superior, 1 on the Supreme Court. I don't want to vote for 3. I want to vote for 31. The last argument I'm going to make is some will say, well, we shouldn't be voting for judges anyway. We are only one of 8 states in the country who vote for judges. There are organizations that belong to the table, the JIPA table, some who believe that we should have merit selection in which commissions or perhaps the governor do all of the appointing of judges. There are other organizations like the ACLU who are not in favor of merit selection, who think we should continue to vote for our judges. So whatever side of that spectrum you stand on, currently we are voting for our judges. And while we are currently voting for our judges, I want to vote for all 31, not the 3 that some legislator out in Lebanon County tells me I can vote for. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. And I hope that there are some out there.
Yes, there are 2 questions so far. The first question, well, first of all, thank you so much for your presentation. That was amazing, wonderful information. The first question comes from Yada Posey, and she wants to know what can be done to diversify the courts.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about the lower courts, like the common pleas, the minor courts, or we could talk about the appellate courts. But I think what we need to do is, it's happening now. We need to see ourselves in these positions. You have to see it to believe it, right? Maybe in most cases. And so I know, there are lots of folks of color running for office in this particular upcoming election. And I'm here, with a nonpartisan organization. So I'm not telling you who to vote for, but I'm going to talk about the reality of the political landscape that we're living in, right? So there's opportunities to put folks on the bench that are folks of color who are currently running for office, and you have to support these folks if you're looking to see change. The other thing that we know is that Black women in particular are one of the most educated populations in the country. A lot of us attending medical school now and law school. And so we need to make sure that this is something that we say we want to do. We can be working in big law firms, corporate law firms, or maybe we're public defenders and doing that work, or civil rights attorneys. We need more folks who are in those positions to run for office here in the state of Pennsylvania, to run for judgeships, I should say, run for these judgeships, become judges to make this happen. And a lot of times, we have that, maybe that imposter syndrome, like, oh, I don't fit all the qualifications to be a judge. Well, I don't think there's some other folks out here who believe in that imposter syndrome. And so if you're someone who can disperse justice fairly, you should look at becoming a judge. We need that. That's the only way we're going to get some diversity on the bench, is that we are out there actually actively running for these judgeships. And that's on all levels. And then when these folks are running, they need to be supported. And that's the only way we're going to get more folks of color on the bench.
Excellent. Thank you. The next question is from Renita Francine, and she wants to know where they can get a schedule of your upcoming webinars in gerrymandering and why courts matter.
Oh, absolutely. So I'll post that here in the chat. I don't know if Thomas or anyone else can share that out. But I'm only doing them for like another 2 weeks because, like I said, we're feeling pretty good about making this drop dead February 18th deadline. I can tell you I'm doing one tomorrow night with the NAACP local branches, the Community Hero Action Group. And I think that's open. I'll put a link in the chat if anyone's interested in joining that tomorrow night. I'm doing another one on Thursday evening with Senator Tim Kearney, Representative Zabel. They're out of Montgomery counties. We're doing a town hall with them to talk about this issue. And that's a public town hall. Even if you don't live in Montgomery County, you certainly can attend that town hall. I'll put that in the chat box as well. And then there's a few more that are popping up in the coming days. I'm looking at my calendar now. Any of you belong to Social Justice Indivisible? It's a group out in Montgomery County again, I believe. They're doing a judicial gerrymandering presentation. And then some of our partners like Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts and Common Cause, they're also doing presentations in the next days. And so I'll make sure that Thomas has that information to share out. But we're having these across the state on Zoom, how we can do them now to talk about this issue and really drive it home for folks. And I'm just happy to be able to communicate this with my community. I did another one just not too long ago with the Asian Pacific Islander community as well, and addressing how this could impact their community. So it's important that we all fight back together in this. The JIPA table, the Judicial Independence Project of Pennsylvania, of which Thomas has a seat there. We are a large group of folks representing more than 125 organizations from all spectrums, grassroots, grass tops, and we are very diverse. And sometimes we don't agree on other issues, but on defeating House Bill 38, we all agree. And so we're fighting back, and we've been having some success, as you can see.
Thank you. The next question comes from Doug Tolbert, and he wants to know, what is the counter argument for the House bill, and what are the advantages that are being promoted to change?
So what is the other side saying? Those who are in favor of House Bill 38, what are they saying this is good for? Is that what that question is? Sorry.
Waiting for Doug. Doug Tolbert, if you don't mind just clarifying your question. While we're waiting for him to clarify, there is another question in the chat. Just asking, what is the next bill for redistricting transparency? And can you talk about the LACRA?
Okay, so break that down. What is LARCA? Is that Linda Miller? I can tell you, I'm here today. I'm going to speak to you about judicial gerrymandering. I can tell you that there's going to be a redistricting effort. We're just coming off of the census. And so every year that ends in 1, we redraw maps. Obviously, Pennsylvania has had legislation in the last few years in regards to redrawing our congressional maps here. We do that every year that ends in a 1 following the census. Right now, we have 18 seats here in the state. Currently, they're 9 and 9 split. It was a much different split prior to them overruling the gerrymandered maps that we had. So I can't tell you the specific bill number that's out there right now, but I know that there are folks that are working on putting together an independent commission to make sure that we have fair maps, in which there would be 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and then 1 person of the choosing of those 4. And if they can't get that 1 person together, then the Pennsylvania Supreme Court would be that 5th determining factor. So that's kind of the work that's being done right now on redistricting. You're going to hear a lot more about that in the coming days and months. But right now, I don't have any information about where that currently stands.
Okay. Can I speak?
Absolutely.
Okay. I sit, and I have also been on the fair districting panels and discussions about House Bill 38. And there's been a push for this, what they call a transparency bill, where we wouldn't continue to have this same discussion, such as the H Bill 38 come out, so that we wouldn't have the political, I don't know what to call it, political sabotage that comes on a regular basis, that we'd have open transparency regarding redistricting for the future. Are you familiar with that at all, Kadita?
I follow fair districts a little bit. I haven't seen, I know that they've been doing town halls about that. That's going to start sparking now, or it has. So I haven't really been following that too much in terms of redistricting. I've really just been concentrating on this judicial gerrymandering work.
Because we all know that when they fail with one bill, they turn around and try to do another one real quick before we know about it, and they don't open it up to the public. So that is my concern right now.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to that, there's other bills that have made it now to the May ballot. Senate Bill 2 is one of those, in which it takes the power away from the governor. It strips him from having 90-day access,
right,
to 21-day access to, have emergencies under his guard. So there's other things that are happening, across the state that they're always going to try to slip through if we're not paying attention. House Bill 38 was one of those. There was no public hearing on this bill, not one public hearing.
Yep.
Hearings you've heard are the ones in which you have folks telling you about it, because they were trying to move this through without transparency. We're talking about transparency, right? So without transparency, running this bill through, and it has no accompanying legislation to it. So we really don't know how they plan to draw the lines, who's in charge of drawing the lines, what those would look like, what would happen to a current judge currently. Would they have to move out of Philadelphia and move to Elk County to maintain their judgeship? So a lot of that is just so uncertain. And so if we're talking about transparency, absolutely, Ms. Linda, there is a lot of work to be done there, because we are not being transparent in Harrisburg right now. We are not holding public hearings for a lot of these things, especially those things that are going to change the Pennsylvania Constitution. So yeah, we have some work to do. And when we're not paying attention is when they try to slip some things through.
So we're going to push our folks to vote no on that question about the governor's control. Is that right? Is that something we're doing?
No, I can tell you, I haven't heard too many folks in grassroots or grasstops organizations talking about Senate Bill 2 as of yet. I don't hear of any table that's being formed to push back on Senate Bill 2. I don't know if there's an appetite of some folks to push back on Senate Bill 2. I think that that's kind of up to the constituency and all of you out there. If this is something you want to push back on, perhaps some folks think that this might be a good idea. Thinking ahead and thinking who could actually be in our governor's seat in 2 years. And maybe they think that maybe this could be a good idea, thinking, in the future. But those of you out there who are interested in pushing back on Senate Bill 2, you're going to have to make your voices heard, because I don't know of a table that's being formed right now to push back on it. And it's almost at this point, this is going to be on a May ballot. Here it is in February. It's a protracted business to stop our ballot initiative questions, our referendum questions, because Pennsylvanians say yes. We've said yes the last 17 times. Yeah. So if there was going to be a campaign to stop this, they need to get out there right now.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, we have clarification from Doug Tolbert. He wanted to know what reason was being given to promote the passing of the House bill.
So why does Russ Diamond think this is a good bill? So I sparred with Russ Diamond in the Philadelphia Inquirer, which was published last week, about this bill. He is the only person who has actually come out publicly making any statements in favor of House Bill 38. There are 125 organizations that have come out against it, released statements and op-eds, and I can't tell you of any one organization that is in favor of House Bill 38 besides Russ Diamond and some of those folks that sit on the same side of the aisle as him in Harrisburg. So what he'll tell you are those myths that I was trying to dispel. He's going to tell you this is going to bring some diversity to the bench, that for some reason you need regional flavor on our appellate courts. That's his argument. Any other argument that he has is just not scientific or based in fact. So I can't really tell you what his argument is or why he thinks that this is a good bill. To me, this is a problematic bill. It was written poorly. It's emotional. I get this from my friend at Common Cause, Khalifa Ali. This was an emotional bill. This came out of being upset at the courts, and this is nothing more than a power grab to take anger out on the courts due to the fact how poorly this bill was written. And that's why there is no support for this bill outside of Russ Diamond and his colleagues. So I can't tell you, whoever's asking that question, what's so good about this bill, because I find nothing good about this bill, and any argument that Russ Diamond has about this has been debunked.
Thank you. And I know you mentioned that we just need to fight against this bill. Sarah Tarlow has a question. She wants to know specifically, what are the best things we can do to keep the pressure on until February 18th? She acknowledges that her representative and her senator does not support House Bill 38. She wants to know if she should keep calling the leadership.
Okay, great question. So what can we do? So we know that it's a groundswell of public opinion when you can get 3, 4, 5 people to call into a legislator's office talking about the same thing on the same day. And you may have a state rep or a state senator who is going to vote the right way and vote no on House Bill 38, and that's great. So if you have not done that yet, please reach out to those folks, even if you know they're a no vote, and thank them. They need to hear that because they may be getting phone calls into their offices of someone who's in favor of House Bill 38. And so for them to vote their conscience here and say, I'm representing my constituency, I had 30 phone calls telling me to vote no, and I had 5 telling me to vote yes. They need to hear from you. Give them that thank you, that they're doing the right thing, and encourage them to encourage their folks on the other side of the aisle to do the same. This is not a partisan conversation. This is facts. Every Democrat voted for this the last time, voted against this the last time. Every Democrat did. Almost every Republican last time when this bill passed voted for it, with the exception of a few, and I have their names. I can give them out to you later if you'd like. But it's going to take us who live in areas in which are safe to reach out to our family members and others who live in other areas for them to call their legislators. If you have a friend and family member who lives in Erie, if you have a friend and family member, especially in Bucks County, Delaware County, Montgomery County, Dauphin County, Cumberland County, reach out to your family members that live there and have them call their legislator, because it does us no good to call an office that is not our own, because they don't care about us. We are not their constituents. Now, leadership is a different story. You can reach out and you can call Senator Corman, you can call Everett, you can call folks in leadership, because they're making decisions that impact us across the state. So everyone can do that. Please, I encourage that. Please continue to reach out to members of leadership, the speaker, this seniority leaders. Reach out to all of them, the majority leaders. Reach out to them and tell them that you are against this bill. They are hearing from us, and this is exactly why it's not going to make the May ballot, because folks have been reaching out to their legislators.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I guess I do have a question. Should we anticipate some type of February surprise where, while February 18th is around the corner, I could imagine those that are in support of this bill maybe still thinking about ways of bringing this up? Are those things that, and I guess it goes back to the point of still pushing our legislators, but was curious about that point in terms of any last minute maneuvering to get this to be on the primary ballot.
Yeah, right now we feel pretty good. There's only but so many days left, and there's still some things that need to happen, right? So this Department of State still needs to put this together and put it in a newspaper and all of that. So we really feel as though if it doesn't move by the end of this week, there's really not anything they can really do, because there's already session dates that are determined. There's already a calendar that's already written. I mean, nothing is normal. We'll give you that. There's nothing normal about these times. 2021 is looking like 2020 at this point. And so things can change. But it would take a lot of work on their part that I don't even think is possible, that they'd have to add dates to the calendar, to sessions, to make this go through for the May ballot. I feel pretty good that we're going to kick this can down into November's ballot and hopefully stop it from reaching that ballot.
Great. I guess maybe a broader conversation, why, in your work with Why Courts Matter, how do we get more folks to recognize the importance of the courts, and so that we can pay attention to issues like this that crop up, recognizing that voting, there's so many different facets to voting, but we know, and so many different facets to our government, but we tend to see that the judicial branch does not get the same attention as the legislative or the executive branch.
Yeah, polling tells us that we may not always be happy with the executive branch, right? We may not be happy with our governor or our president, or we may not be happy with the legislative branch. We may not be happy with US Congress or our state reps or state senators, but we have this affinity for the judiciary. We know that it's a place people go for justice. And sometimes you can go there and it may be your best day or maybe your worst day. But there is this abstract love that we have for the justice system. I mean, here we are, Black History Month, and we know that it was the courts that determined one day we were 3/5 of a person, and then one day made a whole person here in this country. And there are things that the courts have done for us as people to make sure that unjust legislation was overturned. And so it is the place that we go for justice. It is that place that we have an affinity for, but it's not something that's always talked about. And that's why it's so hard here in Pennsylvania, being one of only 8 states in the country who still vote for judges, is that we're not really educated on what the judicial system does, who's on it, what kind of cases that they hear. And that's kind of, maybe it's done on purpose to keep us ignorant to this, so that when we don't go to vote in these off-year elections, right, air quote, off-year elections, we don't know what to do when we get behind there. I know, as someone who has been working on this issue for years now, when we had a retention vote just 2 years ago, I had to Google the judges to find out who they were so I could determine whether or not I wanted to retain them. If you actually do get to see some of the candidates running for office, they spend so much time trying to make us understand what their position does versus actually what they could do as a judge in that position. And so I think we just need to spend some more time, in forums like this, educating constituencies about what the courts do. We need to spend more time and money educating the youth about this. I'm so proud to be able to speak to like PA Youth Vote and other organizations of 16, 17, 18-year-olds who ask excellent questions and care about this issue. But we're going to have to do that because civics maybe has been taken out of some classrooms. And so they're not getting this lesson in high school, or maybe not getting it in college if they go. And so we just have to do a much better job of educating constituency.
A final question that we had was from Carlene Neal. She asked, if the bill is defeated in the primary or doesn't make it to the ballot in the primary, is there a potential that the bill is reintroduced with a different HB number? And then if so, when do we, is there a date that we should begin to advocate so that it doesn't end up on the November ballot as well?
Okay. So when this passed in the last session, it was House Bill 196. In this session, it's House Bill 38. But it has to pass in 2 consecutive sessions, the exact same language. Not one word can change. No amendments can be made to it. So House Bill 196 looks exactly like House Bill 38. They can change the numbers. That's some kind of procedural thing that they can do. But they can't change the language within the bill. So like I said, it passed already in 1 session. It has to pass the House and the Senate. They have up until the end of this July to do that. If they pass the exact same language in House Bill 38, and it'll be called House Bill 38, it won't be a different number. If they pass House Bill 38 before the end of July, it can make the November ballot. So that's why we're continuing this advocacy and talking about this issue, because it can see the ballot in November if both the House and the Senate voted out that way.
Great, thank you. As we close out, want to once again thank you, Khadija Kenner, for joining us this evening and sharing some great insight on this important issue. How can folks find you and stay in touch with the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. I'm going to drop some things here in the chat box, but those of you who are listening, you can reach out to me by visiting our website. You'll see contact information for me on the website. It is www.judicialindependencepa.org. You can also see work that we're doing on the Why Courts Matter Pennsylvania Facebook page, the We the People Pennsylvania Facebook page. That's a great way for you to get in contact with me. And I look forward to you reaching out. I'm happy to talk about this. Here it is. We're at 8:30 at night. And, we could all be doing something very different, but here we are. And I think we do this because we love this. And then we also are working to defend democracy here in this country. So please feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email address in the chat box, Thomas, and feel free to send that out to anyone who's really interested in it.
We'll do. We'll make sure to post it into the chat. So with that, we want to thank everyone for joining us today for this important conversation. Once again, we want to first thank our promotional partners, Black Voters Matter, the National Panhellenic Council of Southeastern Pennsylvania, and She Can Win. We also want to thank our coalition members. For some of you all that's watching us, this is maybe the first time that you're hearing about our coalition. It's a new coalition. And as I mentioned, we're focused on increasing voter participation and education in the Southeastern region. Some of our coalition members include the Philadelphia chapter of the Labor Union Women, Norristown Men of Excellence, the Road chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, My Family Votes, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Pennsylvania chapter, the Urban League of Philadelphia, the Philadelphia chapter of 100 Black Men, I Buy Black, Urban Education, and the Pennsylvania NAACP Pennsylvania State Conference, a newer member of our coalition. So really excited for all the organizations to support us this evening. Once again, we appreciate the Philadelphia Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated for helping to promote this event. And we really look forward to sharing other information as it relates to all that we do. We do anticipate with this upcoming primary, having information on different judicial candidates, DA candidates, and the other candidates that are up this election. So if you are part of a nonpartisan organization and you want to join the Make Black Count Coalition, please consider joining us. We ask that you reach out to any of the coalition members to learn more about our efforts. And more importantly, we ask you to help spread the word and encourage all Pennsylvanians, and particularly those in the Philadelphia region, to exercise their right to vote. It's really important for all of us to recognize the power in our vote and realize the opportunity and the potential when we do have 100% participation. So we really look forward to your support, and we look forward to you having you joining us in future events. So with that, we ask that you enjoy the rest of your evening, stay safe, and continue to stay focused on the issues at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Khadija.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.